Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Scrimshaw Show. My name is Evan Scrimshaw. I have Nathaniel Arfin on the podcast after I just had to watch the most depressing leaders debate in recent memory. Nathaniel, you have children and therefore had to, be a husband and father tonight. So you missed the vast majority of the debate. How are you feeling that you did not have to sit through the worst 90 minutes of your life?
I sat through some of the Ontario leadership debates where everyone pretended to be best friends while attempting to trade barbs. So maybe there was a bit more intrigue into that when I was watching it, but those were a bit of a grind.
In fairness, I couldn't even bring myself to watch those. So I guess you and I have just traded off pain.
Yeah, there we go. I did manage to catch the end of it. Thankfully, my wife mercifully saved me from my crying infant. And I was able to hop in right as Doug was calling Bonnie the queen of the carbon tax, and we got to relitigate that issue once again.
Yeah, that was, I think, I don't want to start with that because the climate section was like pretty just like it was just depressing if we're gonna keep it a buck. I think the thing I sort of kept coming back to in a lot of this debate. So I think we should probably lead with the fact that debates are hard to judge. And I think what a lot of people screw up when they judge debates is they judge the debate as like performance art, right? They debate it in a way that you would sort of critique like a theater performance, right? And that's not really what matters, right?
Sure,
like I think won the debate on like pure style points, making points here. Like, I think if we're just judging it as like a who came off the best. Yeah, Stiles did fine. She pitched her policies pretty well. She got a couple hits in on both sides. She pitched herself as an alternative. She didn't really screw up. Like, she did good, right? Didn't solve any of the NDP's problems. Didn't land a knockout bunch. And is still going to keep the party in the same place that it's been. Third in the popular vote by a considerable margin. Line ball for second in seats. But I think in terms of moving this, Crombie had a bad night because she didn't do anything that was big enough. She didn't do anything that was good enough. She tried to do this I'm just going to talk over Doug Ford. I'm going to be tough thing, which doesn't work in general. It doesn't work against Doug, who, for all the bombast and quote unquote toughness he's actually his whole appeal is that he seems sort of human. But the attacks were it was a lot of shit about the fucking spa. She kept talking about the tunnel, which I think the 401 tunnel is absurd too, but it was a lot about what Doug did. It wasn't a lot about what you were going to do. It was sort of unfocused, incoherent. I don't know how much of this is my problems with her debate performance versus my problem with her leadership of the party. But my overwhelming response to this debate was, Jesus, could we not Nate Erskine-Smith would have kicked Ford's ass because he's a really good in that kind of format. He's really good off the cuff. He's really good on radio, and he would have had a funny line or a funny jab. It would have been something. There would have been something memorable about it. And the problem is that Bonnie was kind of blah. Doug was kind of blah. And when you're 15 points up, tie goes to the guy winning, right? If you're Ford, you're loving a drive. If you're Corey Konechny, if you're Nick Kuvelis, if you're any of the strategists, hey, no one's going to remember this debate in 48 hours. You fucking won, didn't you? If that's the case.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Doug Ford didn't screw up to any extent. He coasted out there and he was able to get away with not having to say much of anything. He's the kind of guy he really needs to be put on his back foot defending his record. We need a leader, and we need leaders who will actually push him on the issues and the record that he has put forward. Yes, we know about the healthcare issues. It's fantastic that Crombie has found a central issue to the campaign and that the Liberals have found a central message for their campaign, but they aren't pushing hard enough on where he has specifically failed and the breadth to which he has failed this province.
The complaint I've had about Crombie, and again, I don't really want to make this a debate podcast because, like, I wrote a column, read it, scriptunscripted.substack.com, like, that's fine, right? My problem with Crombie's campaign in general and her leadership in totality is that looks good on paper, right? There's a housing policy, there's a pivot to the right on some crime stuff. Again, the housing policy is fucking fantastic, right? She ditched the carbon tax, which is a political anchor. All of those things in isolation work really well, right? It doesn't work as a coherent message, right? What is Crombieism? You saw the Doug Ford thing from last week. We should send home invaders who murder people to Sparky, aka the electric chair, right?
Yes.
I don't understand why people thought that was going to be an important moment in that debate, because I am genuinely curious who the person who didn't already think that Doug Ford was on the record as pro-death penalty. Because what happens in politics, this is a great example of something I've harped on for months and arguably years now, right? Which is people don't pay like super close attention to politics, right? They know your like signature big policies and they make judgments about where you sit based on the things they know about you, right? It's why in 2017, Jeremy Corbyn didn't go into the 2017 election with boosts to welfare in his budget, right? In his platform, I should say.
Yes, I do remember this.
Mostly because I've said it to you about 20 times. He didn't have boosts to welfare spending in the thing. If you did focus groups and polling and asked people open-endedly, what are Labor's policies? They went increase spending on the NHS, increase spending on welfare, yada, yada, yada. It wasn't in the manifesto. At all, it wasn't in the manifesto. There was no more money committed, right? But it was Jeremy Corbyn, who has left-wing aesthetics and left-wing vibes. And so people just assumed, well, yeah, of course there's new healthcare spending and there's new welfare spending, because that's just what Labor governments do. That's what Labor parties propose.
I really feel like not giving Jeremy Corbyn enough credit as a progressive here. He was like a legitimate, labor activist in the beginning of his career.
In fairness, the less I say about Jeremy Corbyn, the better, because fuck Jeremy Corbyn. But like, people just filled in the gaps of the things they didn't know with assumptions. How the hell did anybody think Doug Ford wasn't pro-death penalty? If you would have asked me an hour before that came out, what is Doug Ford's opinion on the death penalty? I would have said, oh, he wants to kill everybody.
Yeah, and these are like well-established vibe tests that you can throw on a person, and of course Doug Ford is pro-death penalty. It's Doug Ford, for crying out loud. Like, who are we talking about? Who are the politicians that these people are voting for, and why did they think that this would be a surprise, and why did they think it would be at all a victory? He's not able to put it in place, and it's Doug Ford. This is the kind of ridiculous, over-the-top crap that he comes out with and he says, and people get distracted by it.
I mean, like, I was going to say respectfully, fuck my respect for the Ford family. This is the brother of the guy who was being asked about a very serious, incredible accusation of sexual harassment in the workplace, and his response was, I never ate her pussy. I never said I wanted to eat her pussy. I have more than enough to eat at home. Like, guys, we're not electing We're not electing people you would want at a fancy family dinner. Okay, we're not electing people who know the proper knife and fork, right? That's just not what we're doing here. We all know this, but like the thing about Ford is that he has a like coherent, or at least like coherent-ish set of sort of beliefs, right? He's sort of like a moderate social conservative, right? He doesn't want to touch abortion, he doesn't want to touch gay marriage, but he thinks that some of the sort of like crazy loony left ideas have gone too far, right?
Sure.
He's by no means a fiscal conservative, but he picks sort of high leverage things to sort of give people rebates, gas tax, the license plate stickers, the rebate checks. And he's, a working guy, right? Which is why he has the endorsement of, LAUNA and some of the sort of trades unions.
Yeah.
It all makes sense, right? He's kind of a buffoon, but he's like a, deemed by people. Yeah, he's Bush with a little more working class je ne sais quoi to him.
Yeah.
What is Crombie? Is she a progressive? Is she a centrist? Is she a moderate? Is she running on her record as mayor of Mississauga? Is she running against her record as mayor of Mississauga? Is she running as sort of like is she triangulating off of the NDP and the Conservatives? Is she, trying to embrace some NDP ideas? Like, what is she? Because we got one crime policy, right? The subway TTC, stuff.
Which again, was like it was a tricky way of getting that in there, right? It's not really a crime policy, but it's a crime policy.
Yeah, but the problem is that because you're not making it a crime policy, you're not talking about this shit. You're just going back to healthcare, and like it worked. Abacus now has Crombie best trusted on healthcare, but like that doesn't necessarily mean anything. You need a platform that makes sense holistically, right? It's a tax cut that she kept misrepresenting. Like she talked about her tax cut in the like, what are you going to do for low income workers or low income families? I don't remember the exact wording of the question. And it's like, well, the tax cut doesn't help you if you make under $50,000 a year.
My understanding of it is that there is actually some trickle down at play here, which usually that's kind of bullshit. But in this case, apparently there is benefit to lower income if you. I'm not sure of the economics, but you're right. I mean, optically, she hasn't done much for lower income. The ODSP and
well, if you're on ODSP, she did enact a very, very good policy. But if you just make $22,000 a year, I don't really know what Crombie's doing for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, aside from finding you a family doctor, if you don't have a family doctor. And the other big promise is on housing. So if you're a low income family who happens to own their home and has no doctor, she might help. It's very difficult for me to find the niche she's trying to fit into, and the campaign is trying to fit into right now.
Well, the thing is that this is a campaign that is, for reasons passing understanding, decided that healthcare is their big winning issue, despite the fact that the Ontario Liberals don't exactly have a great brand on healthcare, right?
Absolutely. Historically terrible, as was called out tonight by Merritt Stiles. The Liberals invented hallway healthcare was the charge. And there is some truth to it. There's debate about it starting during the Harris days and being a continuation, whatever. At the end of the day, we are where we are. And the Liberals have to own it to a certain extent. Crombie hasn't tried to erase the past of the Liberals, trying to instead say that, she's a new type of liberal.
Yeah, the problem with the new kind with the different kind of liberal branding, because come on, it's me and I've done this bit, different kind of blank before.
Yeah.
The problem with her being a different kind of liberal is that one, she's not really like making a case that the whole team is different, right? Like this is a very Bonnie focused campaign so far. Now it's not as Bonnie focused as the NDP, who literally are running the slogan, "It's merit," which we'll get into in a minute. But like Crombie's record on housing as mayor of Mississauga was brought up tonight by Ford. Ford had, I believe it was earlier I think it was like 5 minutes earlier, had done like a fulsome, I got it wrong in the Greenbelt. We listened, we stopped it, we were wrong, you were right. Like, we got it wrong, we won't do it, we're building homes. Answer, right? But a fulsome apology for getting it wrong. Why has Bonnie not done that? Why is she not apologized for her housing record? Because then when she came up and she tried to like waffle around the like, yeah, your housing, your record as mayor of Mississauga sucked. It devolved. It didn't meet the legitimate criticisms of Crombie and her record as mayor. It didn't work at all. Why do you think when we see frequently how good Doug is at apologizing, at owning it and moving on and being allowed to move on by the voters, why do you think progressives, try and obfuscate so much when we have clear evidence that a sort of apology-based strategy can work?
Oh, I think it's difficult for people to, number one, build up the courage to apologize. Let's not try to pretend that that's a small thing, because it's not. Apologizing is a very difficult and often humiliating thing. The fact that Doug Ford does it so frequently should give us all pause, because he's apologizing all the time, like every week it feels like. But I think it's partly the pridefulness, because I do think that Crombie is very proud of her record in Mississauga, and I believe to a certain extent that she did some good work in Mississauga. I think that there is real pride there, but at a certain point, she has to recognize the fact that, land use was terrible while she was the mayor in Mississauga, and they're paying the price. They have no developable land in the city. At a certain point, she's either going to have to own her record and say, there were mistakes, but I believe I made Mississauga a better place, just something like that. But
that doesn't seem like that should be that hard of a thing to say. You can point to crime rates, or I'm not going to pretend I know anything about Bonnie Crombie's Mississauga, or beyond the housing stuff, because I don't care about Mississauga. I'm in Ottawa, elitist asshole who doesn't find the GTA that interesting. But whatever the positive elements of that record are, why can't she just defend those elements of the record and say, yeah, and I got housing wrong, or I listened to homeowners too much and didn't pay enough attention to what renters wanted.
Or didn't.
It doesn't feel like that should be that difficult of it just doesn't feel like that should be that difficult of an apology to make, because you're not apologizing for the totality of the record. You're apologizing for one area of government, and you can just say, I was trying to get reelected, and the loudest voices in my ear were homeowners who didn't want their property values to be affected. But, I realized that we listen to the loudest voices and not the silent majority, right? That's not a hard answer to give. And you can also turn it back on Ford in an attack by saying, I listen to the same voices that you're listening to right now, Doug, which is why you're not building enough housing and you're not building enough good housing. But she doesn't want to do it. And drives me crazy because we see the usefulness of a political apology. Because, like Abacus, my favorite thing about Abacus is that every time they release a poll, they just tweet the graphic with all of the vote intention changes over time, and you can see the Greenbelt scandal. Ford's in the low 40s, 37, 34, apologizes, back to 41 basically immediately. That's it. All he needed to do was apologize, and the province was back on side. Why are we so unwilling to do the same? It drives me bonkers.
It's very frustrating to watch for sure. It's one thing with Crombie where she is asking for a job. She's looking for a job leading the rest of the province. If there is question about her record and she can use it as an opportunity to point out where she got things wrong and why she was wrong in her process and how she is improving as a result of it, I think that there is a victory to be had. And right now, she's just not taking it.
Especially given we also know that one of the adjectives most often used to describe politicians is arrogant, right?
Yeah. And
this feels exceedingly obvious to me that this is a great opportunity, but she isn't going to take it. And if she isn't going to take it tonight, nothing she does afterwards changes it. I haven't tweeted the update yet. I think my model is the Liberals on 16 seats. I think they have a 1-seat advantage on the NDP after today's Abacus poll. I'll probably just tweet it tomorrow after tomorrow's Main Street and Nanos numbers. More broadly, like it feels like both the NDP and Liberal campaigns have been like. I think we can feel safe to say that they've been failures, right?
The Liberals have completely failed to vet a number of their candidates.
If you just want to start here, that's fine. Do you want to start with the candidate vetting fails, or do you want to go to the other stuff and then come back to that?
Let's start with the other stuff and come back because there's a lot there.
Go wherever you want to go.
So we had a candidate in, what was it, Nickel Belt, I think, who...
No, it was Sudbury. No, there was one in Thunder Bay.
Who came out and basically came out against Bonnie Crombie's ODSB-OW proposal.
No, that's Sudbury. So Sudbury is the Liberal who said there's no actual way we would do that. Thunder Bay, we're running a misogynist in one of the Thunder Bay seats apparently, and now we're running an anti-Indian racist in Oshawa.
Yes.
Truly delightful.
So I was even thinking about that in terms of like failure to vet. But yeah, so what's going on with campaign management? What kind of centralization does the Liberal Party have if these candidates are coming out opposed to prominent policy positions?
Well, the answer is that there isn't a coherent policy process within the party, right? Which meant that we have all just essentially been flying blind on what the policies were going to be, right? And then we were just kind of desperate for people to say yes so that we could get the prevent subsidy. Plus, we could just, get the spending limits, which I don't know that we're going to spend to the spending limit. So I don't know that any of it matters. But it's just a bad, Crombie's whole thing was that she was going to, one of the main themes of the 2023 leaders debate was professionalizing the party, right? Was rebuilding the party as a internal institution, let alone building it out for the public. And it's just exceedingly clear that the party was not prepared for the snap election, despite the fact that we've known about the snap election this entire time, right?
We've been anticipating a spring election since, I don't know, December.
Since way earlier than that. You and I have been having these conversations since before your birthday, at the very least.
It's I meant the December prior. But yeah.
Yeah.
There have been rumors about this election for so long, and there was no sense of urgency from being inside of one of the campaigns for a nomination campaign. There was very little movement within the party.
I just don't. So I think the thing for me is like, so we got a little bit of a transit policy this week, right? Or in the debate, I should say. Brought up a couple of sort of like go expansions she wants. She is sort of broadly pointing to wanting more public transit in the GTA, the two-way all-day Milton line. She wants a go transit line to London, I believe. But we don't really have a coherent policy there. We don't have a coherent policy. Has Crombie announced anything on education?
No. It's been a
9 more campaigning days. Have not heard a fucking thing from Bonnie about education beyond the fact that she won't use the notwithstanding clause to impose teacher salaries.
Yeah, this is the lack of coherent policy going into this election is really something. Del Duca, it was arguably we had the opposite problem as a party. The Liberal Party felt like they had 1,000 different policy points that every single candidate had to memorize. And now it seems like everyone's flying blind. Every question just gets routed back to healthcare and doctors.
I mean, it's a lot of rewriting it to healthcare and doctors. It's a lot of refocusing on. It's a lot of inartful pivots, right? Like, good political leadership is supposed to bring it. It's supposed to bring complicated, like it's supposed to bring questions that you don't want back to the questions to the issues that you want to be focusing on.
Sure.
That is like the whole point of a pivot, right?
Yeah.
But Crombie's not doing that. Crombie also hasn't made the election about her in any meaningful way, right? To use it as an example, Mark Carney went on CBC this weekend, and the story coming out of the weekend politically federally was Stephen Harper offered Mark Carney the finance ministry in 2012, not anything that Pierre Poilievre said. That was extremely good media management from the Carney campaign. What is Bonnie's attempt to sort of like capture the narrative been? Ford had the entire narrative last week, be it the Sparky comments, be it the trip to DC, be it whatever else. The entire campaign's been about Ford. The debate tonight was about Ford. And the thing that we know from 2022 is that if it's about Ford, right? If we're talking about Doug Ford wins. Because everybody knows Doug Ford kind of sucks. But there is no coherent strategy to beat Doug Ford. And I saw nothing tonight that suggests that Bonnie Crombie has a better handle on what to do, what to say, and how to message to beat Doug Ford. And it is frightening because a debate stage would have been a great opportunity to put a big idea in the window, right? Something like the Commission of Audit that I've been begging for, something like the Anti-Corruption Commission that I've been begging for over a year now, right? Why is she not putting any big ideas in the window at a debate? Why is she saying, oh, we'll have a costed platform? There's 9 campaigning days left. Where's it coming?
When are we getting a costed platform? Is it going to make the news? When are you going to have time to tour that platform? Are you bragging about it? I hope you have media lined up, because other than the healthcare ads, what have people been seeing from the Crombie campaign? It hasn't made headline news because of the tariffs and federal issues and all that going on. So the turnout we know is going to be incredibly difficult, let's say. This is going to be it's going to be about pulling identified voters and getting your vote out. But if you don't have a vote base to begin with, because you haven't brought ideas and put them on the table and given people a look at you as a candidate, where are those votes coming from? Who are you pulling from?
Yeah, but the problem is that they don't like. I'm always like slightly more skeptical of like ground game and stuff like that. Do we think like I've been saying this as like kind of a joke, but not really a joke? That turnout is more likely to start with a 2 than it is to start with a 4. Am I wrong?
If the weather is anything like it was or has been for the past 2 weeks, I'm very, very nervous about turnout.
Dude, it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
Like, it's bad, man. This campaign isn't like it is stunning. I used to get better traffic with a smaller follower count, a smaller email list, and just like generally less, just generally less people knowing who I am. I used to get significantly more traffic on Alberta election columns 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 months out that I get now in writ for Ontario coverage. I tweeted a Scrimshaw scoreboard one night recently, a model protection. 0 likes, 0 retweets for legitimately like 6 hours. Nobody cares about this election. And that's a stunning indictment of the opposition, is it not?
Well, the fact that no one has been able to capture this moment and say, yes, ours is the party to lead you through this crisis, this moment of change, this big situation. Nobody has stepped up and made themselves the name to watch. And I get that the timing, blah, 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 they made it as difficult as possible for everyone to get themselves going. And we knew that was going to be the case. And the party wasn't prepared. Are we also pretending that Crombie's failures aren't part of why we're having an early election? I mean, absolutely. That's
because think about it. If Doug was polling 4 points up and not 20 or whatever Nick Uvalis was showing right before the writ, Doug doesn't go in that case, right?
Yeah.
If Crombie had been more successful in 2024, hadn't wasted the vast majority of that year with Tom, what did we decide his nickname was? Tom Fraudison or Fraud Allison?
I'm not participating in those names, in that name calling. But
I mean, look, all I'm saying is that the Liberals wasted 2024. The Ontario Liberals absolutely wasted 2024. And that is part of why Doug felt like he could go the way he went. He could go early because he had a lead. The way that you could have stopped this and bought yourself time to 2026 was by polling better, was by winning the Milton by-election, or at least not suffering a swing against you in the Milton by-election. But they didn't. I
understood the beginning there where they said they were going to take time, get to know the constituency, and try to build the party. But I didn't ever see that happen. Did you?
No, God, no. Of course not.
So it's just so tough to watch this happening and feel like we had an alternative option available as a party. And even if we didn't take that, there are so many missed opportunities throughout this campaign and throughout the leadership of Crombie so far, where they could have made different choices made different policy choices or, just had better sense of what the electorate wanted.
If the OLP had listened to my ideas in my columns this entire time, would they be in a better or a worse place than they currently are?
Well, absolutely better. Anyone following your columns would know that you're not antagonistic to Crombie, and while you don't pull punches, it's about the ideas, and we haven't seen them from the party, and it's painful.
It's infuriating because there have been a lot of good ideas that I have put forward, and none of them have been adopted. And I'm not saying that I'd have the party in a winning position right now if I were chief strategist, because that's an unreasonable thing to suggest about any individual staffer in general, let alone some guy. But you want to position yourself as this fiscal moderate, fiscal discipline, talk about how much Doug's wasting. Okay, and?
Yes, show us what you will do differently.
Bring in a fucking commission of audit then. Have a policy, a signature policy to meet the moment and the argument that you're making. You want to talk about Ford's failures on crime, talk about, and you have this very good ODSP policy, talk about those two things together. Talk about one of the reasons that we need to raise ODSP, we need to get rid of the legislated poverty that ODSP represents, is that when you reduce poverty, when you fight those sorts of issues, you reduce crime. The reason that the crime rates slashed in the back half of the 20th century, there's a lot of indicators there. It was mostly a significant rise in living standards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Desperation leads people to make desperate decisions, and reducing desperation by raising ODSP can be part of an anti-crime strategy. But she can't put that together and make a case.
We have Doug Ford up on the stage saying we need to cut tape, we need to cut red tape on housing, we need to cut development charges. It's like, Doug, who's been in charge for 7 years? And none of them are able to put forward those kinds of talking points in any meaningful way that lands, that sticks with him, that proves the point. And it's just so disappointing that Crombie isn't able to hold his feet to the fire on the causes, the underlying systemic and social causes of the problems that Ontario faces. She told Doug Ford tonight in the debate that she doesn't want to raise her grandchildren in Doug Ford's Ontario. That should be a biting indictment of who he is, but she wasn't able to follow it up with how she would change Ontario for the better in any meaningful way. And that's why she's falling short.
Obviously, the Liberals have had a couple of controversies in seats they're not going to win. There has been a push because of an NDP candidate, Eglinton Lawrence, stepping down right before the close of nominations. A lot of people on the progressive left are sort of talking about how we just need to do a deal. We just need some sort of cooperation agreement to beat Doug Ford. My response to that is twofold. One, Doug Ford's polling about 4 points higher than he did last time. That ain't the solution to your problems. But two, it feels like a lot of energy and effort from the progressive left have been talking about these sorts of solutions because they don't want to actually sit down and figure out how to make their parties just more organically popular to people who are voting for Doug Ford. And I dare suggest that attempting cancel culture on a liberal in Thunder Bay and being like, oh my God, the liberals are so terrible. Not defending the misogynistic comments of the guy in Thunder Bay. I'm definitely not defending the anti-Indian comments from the liberal in Oshawa. But I dare say the NDP strategy of being like, well, the liberals should have just let us run unopposed in Thunder Bay. In a seat, the liberals literally went 6 literally came like 6 points shy of losing last time. Have to say, I don't think that meets the moment. And I think there will be a progressive reckoning with the idea that so many of these sort of previously held sort of progressive shibboleths are going to need to come down in a post 2024 world. It's not really about these candidates. I don't really care about these candidates. Like, they can burn for all I care. I do think the game of like old tweets is probably not a game progressive should really be like that concerned with anymore. And I just wonder what you think about this in a more general sense.
There is a little bit of, old tweets should be able to be forgotten. I don't think every candidate should have to go through and remove everything they've said from 20 years ago. As candidates progressively get younger, or at least are from a new cohort, we're going to have more online native politicians. And that's people who grew up on Facebook, on MySpace, on Twitter, like wherever. And we're going to have more and more of these stories. And I'm wondering if we are going to get lost in what someone said 20 years ago and holding them accountable for the person that they used to be. And we're going to be moving away from holding people accountable for who they are and who they represent themselves to be now. I'm not saying that we should forgive people for, basically Holocaust level views of other races, but people get burnt out on this kind of stuff and it hurts accountability elsewhere. So I do hope that we can find a balance where it doesn't feel like you're getting canceled, I guess is the word, for something you said 20 years ago. But I also want to see...
It's also pretty bad that the NDP had a better rapid response for a Liberal candidate in Thunder Bay than for half of what Doug Ford has said this campaign.
Well, I mean, that's just the NDP, though. That's the way that the NDP have always been. They would prefer to attack the Liberals on the left than they would the Conservatives on the left, because that's just the way they are.
Do you want some Nick Kuvelis? Do you want me to read you a Nick Kuvelis tweet?
Sure.
Sorry, I'm trying to find it again, and I have lost it. 2 seconds. Looks like the Ontario NDP got some new life post-debate. PC number still 45. I'm assuming that's early post-debate sampling from him.
So that chunk will be coming off of Bonnie, presumably.
If the PCs are still at 45, yeah.
Are we surprised?
No. I thought Stiles had a good night. I don't think she solved the structural problems of the NDP, but I also don't think. But again, you're not solving a structural problem in a debate format, right? You're solving that by having Stiles resign and recontest the leadership.
Yeah.
In a quick and dirty 3-month campaign against a chosen candidate of the left. And actually having to fight this with the membership and actually get some fucking authority. Does Ford break 90 seats? Gun to your head. Laser to the earth, whatever the dumb Max Kellerman thing was.
Do the Liberals break, how many seats?
Do the Conservatives break 90?
90.
They won 83 last time.
I'm going to say no. I think they could hit 85, 87. 93 is a lot.
Do you think they get more seats than they did last time? They're 83 last time.
Yes.
Sarah Jama, does she win? Yes or no?
No.
Oh, interesting. That seems to be a hot take. I have no idea. I'm just waiting to see if Minster's going to pull it. I think they said they will.
The thing with Sarah Gemma is I understand that she has a really strong ground team. She has a lot of local support. What I am concerned about there is a level of vote splitting. People still vote by color. That's something we all recognize. And whether or not she is able to be the NDP candidate in Hamilton is going to matter. Like it or not, it's going to matter.
To be clear, you mean party color?
Yes. Oh, yes. Horrifying thought there. Yes. Party color.
Just want to clarify that.
Yes. I am not saying the voters of Hamilton are racist here.
My brain was like, that is an odd thing to say, and then I figured out what you meant. I just want to clarify that one. Do the Liberals get official party status? 12 seats. They have 8. We have, call it 8.5 right now, because I have no idea what the fuck to do with Karen McCrimmon and Connecticut Carleton, because the math says she shouldn't hold it at all, but she wanted a by-election, so who the fuck knows? I hate modeling by-election seats. It's hell. Because you have no idea what matters and what doesn't, what the correct baseline is.
Party status is 10?
No, 12.
12. I would set this line at 10.5 seats, I think.
So I think I have them on 16 right now, but that's pre-debate, which I don't think went well for them. And I'm slightly worried I'm overvaluing Main Street. I don't know.
I really think the turnout is just going to be completely abysmal. I am really, really worried about that. So if you're listening to this, please vote.
I don't necessarily know that the voters that would show up in 50% turnout that vote in 38% turnout are a super liberal group, but whatever. Last question, unrelated to politics. We got 12 more hours before Vladdy needs to sign an extension, if he's going to sign one this year? Do we think he's going to? Do we think the Jays are going to lock that down, or do you think they're going to just throw this away?
I know that they have been in serious talks. If you're following along Vladdy's socials, he's been tweeting clock emojis and TikTok. It's been a stressful time. He told us that there's a number, the Jays know what the number is, and they can meet it or not meet it. I don't know what there's to negotiate really here. They either the Jays are either going to meet the number or they're not, right? Yeah, and it'll be incredibly disappointing, I think, if Ed Rogers put all of this together only to waste it over millions that he has. The organization can pay Vladdy. It's about structuring the payments in a way that makes sense for the organization. And I really think that it's about the structure of the contract at this point rather than the dollar figure.
But if it was really just about how much the salary declines and deferral amounts or whatever else, don't you think we would know that there's an agreement in principle and they're just working out the details?
The Blue Jays have been very, very good at having a quiet front office for quite some time. They really don't leak very much. Now, the one thing that I will say is, to bring this back to politics, the dollar value in Canada is not helpful for this scenario. The Blue Jays collect money, they collect revenue in Canadian dollars, and they pay their players in American dollars. So the devaluing of the Canadian dollar, the loonie lately, has not been helpful and can't be helpful when you're having these negotiations.
Yeah, but also Ed Rogers has enough money to deal with a 4% devaluation or whatever. It's not like the dollar has fallen from 90 to 70 in the span of these negotiations. It's fallen from like 74 to 70 in these negotiations.
Yes, Ed Rogers needs to put up the money, and that's what this comes down to. The fact that Bo Bichette hasn't had any conversations with the front office in this offseason indicates to me like they better be putting in a concerted effort to make this happen. I will be quite upset.
I mean, I feel like if there weren't talks with Vladdy, we would know that by now.
No, there were not talks with Bo. Sorry.
No, I know. So I think it means that they're talking still, like they're trying to work something out. Because I feel like the fact that we know that there haven't been talks with Bo Bichette tells us that like clearly they're working on this. Jays fans, man, have had a rough couple of years. Wouldn't you think it would be worth it to give somebody some sense of like, no, we're close, just to keep the fan base from like, immolation?
I mean, the Max Scherzer signing really, it would be strange, I think, if it could be that the team is going all in one last time. Let's go for it. And if we lose, then someone else will come in and clean up the mess. But baseball organizations don't really typically run that way. And it would be strange for that to be the case here.
Yeah. Do you think there would actually be a threat to either Atkins or Shapiro if they don't get this done?
Yes.
You think so?
Yeah. It's gotten to the point now where this front office, they need to show that they are capable of doing these things, of signing the big players, of getting the big deals done. The team has taken steps backwards in the past 2 seasons, in my opinion. And the window is starting to close for a lot of these players. It's now or never. Sign Vladdy. And if you don't, I think it's World Series or bust.
Yeah, no, seems depressing. Makes me all the more happy that I don't invest in Toronto sports teams. In the emotional well-being of Toronto sports teams. Nathaniel Arfin Nathaniel on Twitter. Thank you for doing this. Follow me on Twitter at Scrimshaw. Read my site, scrimshawscripted.substack.com. There's plenty of federal politics stuff coming. I'm going to be recording probably the next politics podcast I do is going to be, I'm going to have my buddy Ben Oates on to do, we're hoping that we can do a live night, like not live, I'm not going to scream it live, but a post-English liberal leadership debate. The problem, of course, is Benny is a proud Newfoundlander, and that time difference is a little bit of a bitch. So hopefully we'll get it done the night of, if not the next day. Thanks for doing this, buddy.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to listening to that one.
Sounds good.